Let's be real. We live in an age where AI can create fakes that are impossible to spot and where stories can change in the blink of an eye. So, how do we know what's real anymore? What if the answer isn't about finding a better source of truth, but about building a whole new structure for it? All right, let's get into it. So, that brings us to the big question for today's explainer. What if truth wasn't something you had to believe in, but was something you could actually build? Like an engineer builds a bridge. Something you can test, stress, and prove is solid before you trust it. Well, there's actually a name for a system like that, the Berkano protocol. And no, it's not some new app or tech company. It's a set of rules, a protocol, designed specifically to function in the middle of all the chaos of our modern world. So, what is this thing, really? The easiest way to think about it is that Berkano treats truth like it's computer code. Any claim you make has to come with its source code, the proof. Then, the system does everything it can to find bugs, to find contradictions. And if a claim survives all that testing, it gets locked down into what they call a tamper-proof fossil. The whole point is to make being honest the only way the system works, not just a nice option to have. And this quote just nails the whole philosophy behind it. Berkano couldn't care less about some charismatic leader telling you what's true. It says reality isn't something that's just revealed to us. Nope. It's something we uncover, piece by piece, by auditing everything. It's a totally different way of looking at facts. Okay, so that all sounds pretty cool in theory, right? But how does it actually work? Well, when you break it down, it's a really clear, logical process. The whole thing boils down to 4 simple steps. It's actually pretty elegant. First, someone makes a claim. Step 2, they have to provide the source, the evidence. Step 3, the system goes on the hunt for any contradiction it can find. And finally, and this is the real kicker, the result gets locked permanently. So history can't just be deleted or secretly edited. And to do all this, it relies on a few key tools. First up is verify. You can think of this as the protocol's built-in fact checker. It automatically scans public records, data, anything it can find to see if a claim actually lines up with reality. And next, you've got prune. Now, this one is fascinating. It's like a surgeon's scalpel for language. It cuts away all the jargon, the fluff, the emotional manipulation. The rule here is simple. Clarity overrides style. You can't hide a bad argument behind pretty words. And that brings us to lock. This is the final step, the one that creates that permanent, unchangeable fossil we talked about. Once something's locked, it's there forever. Sure, you can add a new entry to correct the record, but the original always stays, creating this perfectly clear, auditable trail. Now, you have to know that a system this radical, this different, doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. To really get what Berkano's about, you have to understand the person who created it, Rodrigo Vaz. And this quote from Vaz, wow, it tells you almost everything you need to know. He's not building a system for people to blindly follow. It's a tool for people who want to understand things for themselves. It forces you to engage, not just to believe. What's so interesting is how the creator's approach has been compared to the mythological figure Loki. Yeah, Loki, the Norse trickster god. Like Loki, he's an outsider who uses chaos, in this case things like aggressive testing, to reveal uncomfortable truths. He's building this new protocol while at the same time he's attacking the old established way of doing things, a builder and a destroyer. And there's another layer here that is absolutely critical to the whole story. The protocol's creator is AuTHD. That's autism plus ADHD. And this isn't just a biographical detail, it's baked into the very DNA of the system. The protocol's obsession with directness, its intense, single-minded focus, its total disregard for social niceties, these are all reflections of a neurodivergent mind. In this system, they are features, not knocks. And that brings us to the deepest, and maybe the most personal reason this protocol even exists. Because this wasn't just some intellectual project. It was born from some very real, very painful life experiences. The source material is incredibly open about this. The core motivation for creating Berkano came directly from a history of dealing with gaslighting, with having boundaries completely ignored, and with having his own reality just denied and erased by other people. So you see, Berkano is a structural solution to an emotional problem. When someone tries to rewrite what happened, you don't have to get into an endless, draining argument. You just point to the locked fossil. The protocol takes memory and truth out of the realm of debate and turns it into an external, unchangeable fact. But the design of this protocol doesn't just come from tech or mythology or even personal trauma. It pulls from a source of wisdom that is much, much older. Shava Shava. This is a greeting of respect from the Shana Noa, an indigenous people in Brazil, and it's a doorway into understanding the protocol's deep connection to the creator's own ancestral heritage. And the way this is woven in is just incredible. We're not talking about some vague inspiration here. Indigenous principles are actually treated as functional logic modules inside the system. What's called forest logic is seen as this deep, time-tested wisdom that's perfectly compatible with cutting-edge AI. Cultural identity isn't an afterthought. It's a foundational piece of the entire design. And that really brings us full circle. The Berkano protocol leaves us with a pretty wild thought that in our super advanced AI-powered world, our best weapon for truth might not come from a clean room or a sterile lab. It might just come from the messy, powerful combination of chaos, the deeply human need to heal, and the ancient wisdom of our ancestors. Now that's something to think about.